Those guys are so zen, so zen, so zen. Back in the house once again.
What is up? What is up? What is up, everybody? Sorry I missed last night, man. I got back off the road early Tuesday morning, because when I did that live Monday night, that sounds so horrible. I was on the road and I was streaming from my phone, but I said I was gonna do a little experiment and go 5 nights a week and see how that works out. But I guess I'm gonna have to either reboot that experiment next week or just do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night live this week, so I can fill up the whole week, because I really need to get back on top of my game. And when I was at the top of my game, that's what I was doing. I was putting in more work, putting out more content with less distractions in my personal life, so I could focus more on the quality of the content. And people enjoyed the show. I gave you guys a lot of good shows, and that's because, again, my energy wasn't being split in so many directions. So I'm going to try to refocus that energy and start really rebuilding my channel back to the level that it was at, because you know the money was good, getting the word out was even better, having more people watching the show was even better, because the more people subscribe to the channel, the more people share the videos, is the more people are going to find me, the more people are going to come and subscribe themselves. They're also probably going to watch more of my videos and more of my content, then eventually find their way over to Rumble so they can find the bulk of the content. And next thing you know, we'll have the Rumble channel and the YouTube channel growing. You know what I'm saying? Sire Father says, nah, that live Monday night was on point. Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about the Sire Father. I'm not talking about like what I was talking about, like the subject matter per se. I'm talking about the audio quality. When I say it sounded horrible, that's the audio quality. But every once in a while, I just like to sit down and do those fireside chats with you guys and just kind of share my thoughts on shit. And well, I shared a lot of thoughts, and some of those thoughts, believe it or not, are rooted in my own personal fears. You see, I'm not afraid of nothing. The only thing I fear is failure, and not failure in the sense of I have another opportunity to try again. I fear failure in life, because you only get one, and once you fail at this one, that's it. You'll forever be remembered as a failure, and that's what I don't want. That's what I don't want. And I don't want to spend the rest of my days living in mediocrity. You know what I'm saying? So I'm doing everything I can, exploring every possible avenue to try to get other streams of revenue going, so I can make my life a bit more comfortable and a bit more manageable. Because when I got to focus 110% of my energy into one stream of income, there's really very little left to expand into other verticals. You know what I'm saying? And in the past, it was the landscape business, the live streaming. So I was able to really split my time and make it happen. Nowadays, I got not just the landscape business, but I got the landscape / construction business. Then I got the family and the wife and the kids, and I got the live stream. So how much energy can I really give to this endeavor if I'm being split in so many directions? So, like I said, time to reboot, time to refocus. Winter time's here, so the outdoor services industry is coming to a screeching halt. Everybody's getting their fall cleanups done and everything for the, shutting down for the year, winterizing equipment and all that. And it's time to focus on a different avenue. And that avenue will be the live streams, the show. You guys check out my YouTube short. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's on my channel. Just click on the channel with Shorts with Dame Dash. I thought it was funny because he was talking about why he left the music industry, and I kind of posted it talking about why I left my exes, and I thought that was pretty funny because it's kind of true. But not gonna lie, I be having a dragon breath sometimes too because I am a smoker, and our mouths get dry, so I can't just put that all on them. But anyway, nevertheless, before we get too sidetracked, tonight's topic: the political power shift. The establishment has lost its influence. The people now see the truth. You see, a long time ago, the Democrats could pull stunts like they pulled this year with the government shutdown, refusing to vote on a continuing resolution to reopen the government, and the fake news would just blame the Republicans as if the Republicans were the ones voting no when it was the Democrats voting no the whole time, right? And people would believe it. People would actually buy into it. Then it would last maybe a week or two, and then a resolution's passed, and then the government's open, and the Democrats are the heroes. That's usually been the narrative, even though in reality it wasn't so. I guess some of us live in reality and others live in delusion. That's just the way the world works. But this time around, the shutdown lasted for quite some time, and a lot of people were hurt by it. And I believe the shutdown is still going on because I think the House passed the bill, but the president has yet to sign it. So once the president signs it, then we can call it official. Shout out to my man Earl on the Cash App. He says, for the courage and heart in today's censorship. Appreciate you, Earl, for that sponsorship. That was awesome. Shout out to my brother Antonio on the Cash App. He says, here's a little something to kickstart the show. And my sister Elsine on the Venmo. She said 17 luck with the Q challenge. Appreciate you, Elsine. And big shout out to my brother Lee 14224 with that faithful support on the PayPal, saying have a great Wednesday show. Appreciate you, brother. Sorry, I just got completely thrown off and sidetracked by that Cash App. Not every day I get a full sponsorship, but shout out to the brother for sponsoring the show. We got one sponsor. Hell, we could use three more, but we do have other supporters on the board. So what do we got? We got 3 Cash Apps. No, 2 Cash Apps, a Venmo, and a PayPal. That's 4. All right, cool. So we got 4 supporters on the board, 1 official sponsor, but 4 supporters nonetheless. All right, so tonight's topic: the media has lost its influence. The political power shift. The establishment has lost its influence. Oh, what I was saying was the Democrats with the government shutdown. This shutdown, they couldn't pull that same lie because it kept being reported and documented that the Republicans are proposing the continuing resolution, and the Democrats kept shutting it down, demanding stupid shit like health care for illegals. Well, the Republicans this time decided to stand on business and let the Democrats basically shoot themselves in the foot by them standing on business and keeping the government shut down by voting no on the continuing resolutions that were being proposed by the Republicans. And what started to happen was the media and their fake news conglomerates on social media, of course, they got together and they tried oh so desperately to pin this shutdown on the Republicans, but it was already a little too late, and people had already figured out what the game was and what the play was and who was really behind the shutdown. And now there's no getting around it. Now we know that they're willing to let people starve. They're willing to let people go over a month without getting paid in order to be of service to foreign nationals. They've basically solidified themselves as the party of foreign infiltration, not only in the eyes of conservatives, because we've already known this, but also in the eyes of a lot of their own constituents. Because when that EBT stuff went down, everybody was saying, oh, Trump cut off EBT. But, excuse me. But the EBT being cut off was not in Trump's hands. It was in Congress's hands, the Democrats and the Republicans. And the Republicans were trying to reopen the government, and the Democrats were demanding stupid shit, which kept it shut down. So, in more closely examining who's responsible for your food stamps getting cut off, it's the same damn Democrats you vote for. Because the majority of SNAP benefit recipients are Democratic voters. So the same representatives, quote unquote, that these Democratic voters vote for were the same ones that were willing to take away the free handouts that they promised them and that they gave their voters in order to give free handouts to foreign nationals. And this whole open borders thing, that further destroyed their credibility, because back in 2018, 2019, they were stomping all over the place on behalf of the illegals. Remember? Trump's border wall is racist. Border security is racist. America is stolen land. We got to let these third world people in here. And come 2020, Biden gets elected, or at least the Biden regime gets put into power through election fraud, of course. The borders get opened up, and all the stolen land, the border wall is racist people, all those people, they got to have their way. And within a matter of 3 to 4 years, they were already crying out for Trump to come back and deport all these people, because they were asking for it and they were begging for it, and they were in staunch opposition against anybody who was for border security. I even debated Brother Sanchez about this topic, and he was for the open borders. Now here we are, 5 years later, 6 years later, and, well, it turns out that I was right. And the majority of America actually agrees with me. That's because so much has transpired over that period of time that one cannot ignore reality for much longer. You can try to, but the only way you can ignore reality is to literally ignore what's being broadcast on the airwaves. Like, you would literally have to live under a rock, because we live in the age of information, and this information is being put out everywhere. The message is being spread widely, and more and more people are starting to see it. Instead of the headlines saying, like in past years, the Republicans are keeping the government shut down, now the headlines were saying the Democrats were keeping the government shut down. And they got embarrassed. And the fact that they all took this long to cave is not a badge of honor at all. In fact, it makes them look worse, because all their voters are saying, well, if you were able to vote on it now, 30 some odd days later, why the fuck didn't you vote on the first one? Because everything that you voted for now was what was proposed in the first one. So if you see it okay to vote for it now, why didn't you vote for it then? Why did you allow all this stupid shit to go on? Oh, right, because you're anti-American. That's right. You want to give our tax money to the illegal aliens. That's right. And a lot of Democratic voters ain't feeling that. They're not feeling that. And the fact that so many Democrats were calling out the Democratic Party in Congress for shutting down, keeping the government shut down, that shows me that the political power shift is happening, and that the establishment has lost its influence, because even some of their biggest talking heads, like Bill Maher, they couldn't even defend the Democrats in this shit, because they were just that wrong. There was no defending it, because the only people that were really suffering were the hardworking Americans that serve in our government, and the individuals who make up the majority of the Democrats' voter, or the individuals who receive food stamps, SNAP benefits, whom happen to be the majority Democratic voters. Happen to be majority Democratic voters is what I should say. I'm trying to get my English right. English is whooping my ass. Shout out to Tommy Sotomayor for that joke. English is beating me up tonight. So they embarrassed themselves, they exposed themselves again, but this time they did it in such a way that it directly affected people's ability to feed themselves and feed their families, because the same Democratic Party that made these people dependent on those government subsidies to eat was the same Democratic Party that was willing to take away their subsidies to eat so they can give subsidies to foreign nationals who have entered our country illegally. There ain't no getting around that. There ain't no walking that back. There ain't no explaining that away. And hopefully the Democratic voters come 2026 don't forget this shit. But they probably will. And they're going to turn around and vote for the same assholes. But 2026 will be the marker to show us how far the narrative has shifted, how far the political power has shifted. Hey guys, make sure you hit that like button. If you're watching on Rumble, hit that thumbs up. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button. Those are other ways that you can support the show. Also, hit that share button. And if you haven't subscribed, well, maybe you should. Maybe you should. So let's go ahead and get into this. Make sure you guys go subscribe to the Citizen Man Backup channel here on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to the Backup channel, please make sure you do in case they zap me over here on Citizen Man TV. We can stay connected. All right. Also, go follow me over on Rumble. Go follow me on Rumble. All right. Check out the Rumble page. I got tons and tons of content. Over 500, almost 550 videos of pure fire, all informational, all educational, because there's just so much to learn when it comes to politics and geopolitics. And it's a never-ending flow or stream of information that's constantly being put out, and we're broadcasting it and spreading it and helping that message proliferate, because waking up the people not only means showing them the importance of being involved in their own political system, but it also means teaching them how to discern between who's actually on your side and who's lying to you. Because you're in this information war, you'll always be presented with the truth, the facts, the real narrative, and then you'll be bombarded with the lies, the falsehoods, and the fake narrative, because they need you to believe those lies in order to get you to act a certain way. Just like they started saying Trump's a racist and a fascist and a sexist and all this, and they got people to believe those lies so much so that a group called Antifa started popping up in liberal cities and beating up Trump supporters, thinking that they were doing the right thing and saving humanity because they believed the lie. So, as conservatives, as patriots, it's our job to counter that lie by not only telling the truth, but showing the truth. And why is it important to show the truth? Because 90% of the time, the lies are going to come with some sort of visual or some sort of receipt that's taken out of context in order to fit that false narrative. So they try to give you more than just them saying it, or they'll have some fake expert come on and repeat it as if they're giving it legitimacy, because they want to have more than just themselves saying it. So therefore, if anybody was to dare to challenge that lie or challenge that narrative, they would also have to explain the evidence presented, whether it be quote unquote expert testimony or some sort of receipt that's taken out of context, or that's just completely fabricated. Because we've seen that too, like that fake birthday card that they claim Trump wrote to Jeffrey Epstein. Mind you, Epstein got arrested in 2019. It's 2025. Now they're putting that shit out. And the Democrats had 4 years in the White House, and now they want to put it out. That's because they just lost on the whole continuing resolution, the whole government shutdown thing, and they're desperately trying to use their demonization tactics, because simply playing fair and representing the people the way they were elected to represent the people obviously ain't working for them, because they can't push their agenda that way. So they're not there to represent the people. They're there to misguide and mislead the people. And again, if you guys would like to support the show, you can do so by sending in a kind donation via Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo, using the tag scrolling across the screen in the banner below. The links that are pinned to the top of the chat in the black box where it says Citizen Man TV in yellow. Just click the yellow. The box opens up and all the links are there. You can also find those very same links in the description box of every video on YouTube and Rumble. And shout out to all 4 of my supporters so far. Appreciate you guys showing love. Don't forget the red X through the PayPal is just to remind you that PayPal censors comments, so be mindful of what you say. All right. So let's get into this slideshow. We got a bunch of stuff for you. So, Georgia police officer under investigation after confronting a transgender individual in the women's restroom at a public library, saying he was protecting women and children. So, a Georgia police officer sees a man in the women's restroom. I'm just trying to make sense of this, right? So a Georgia police officer sees a man in the women's restroom, and he decides to intervene somehow, confront this individual, because these transgenders that pop up in the women's restrooms, well, in a lot of cases, they're not there just to use the potty. They're there to prey on the women and the children who are in those restrooms, the women and the girls. And now the cop is under investigation. So this has got to be some liberal city, probably Atlanta or something, or the Atlanta metro area or something. But this is evidence that the battle is not over yet. The war has not been won yet. The agenda is still being pushed. And the way to win the war is to defeat the small hat infiltration. Everything pertaining to the LGBT movement, the pro-pedophile movement, the election fraud, the Trump smear campaigns, the riots and the protests and all that shit. It's all being orchestrated by the small hats. Everything anti-American, anti-God, anti-man. It's all being pushed by the same media establishment that's owned and in some cases operated by the small hat mafia. So by exposing and defeating this particular group of controllers, is actually the linchpin to undo all the other propaganda campaigns that are being pushed on us in order to carry out their one world government agenda and mass extermination / depopulation program. What do you think the big push to protect the transgenders is all about? Obviously, the Democrats don't care about their people. I mean, look what they did with the government shutdown, right? So why is there this big push for empowerment for transgenders? Well, that's because it's a sexually perverted lifestyle that generally leads to loneliness and, in a lot of cases, suicide. Because you have a gay man that likes men, but he wants men that like women, so he turns himself into a woman and tries to attract men that like women. Well, unfortunately, a man that likes women is not going to be attracted to a man pretending to be a woman. And women obviously won't be attracted to a gay man pretending to be a woman, so he ends up alone. Gay men won't be attracted to a gay man that's pretending to be a woman because they're attracted to men. You see how that gets a little dicey when you start thinking about it in those terms? But that's what the agenda is. Keep us depressed, keep us confused, keep us hypersexualized, keep us that's how they keep us, not necessarily distracted, but I guess distracted could be the word. But it's meant to keep us focused in the wrong direction, preoccupied with the wrong shit. Because if more people were concerned about actually seeking real political power rather than whether to stand up or sit down to pee, this country would be in a much better position. And what they're trying to do, another thing they're trying to do with the trans gentleman movement is they're trying to normalize this perversion. They're trying to make it normal for a man to show up in the women's bathroom or a women's sauna or their spa or their locker room or whatever, because they know that makes it dangerous for the children. They're okay with that. And they have a problem with anybody who's trying to stop it, because they're trying to make that perversion seem normal, and anybody who is in opposition to that perversion seem like they're crazy. That's all it's about. Control of the narrative. Now, I mentioned this slide in my show on Monday. The hell? I mentioned this slide in my show on Monday. And this slide is the Mamdani thing with the small hats. Newly leaked documents reveal that New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani plans to terminate all city contracts with companies tied to Israel and pull city funds from banks that finance the Jewish state. So maybe that's why Trump hasn't deported this guy yet, because Trump is allowing him to be used as the mechanism to take down the small hat control in New York. And New York is one of their biggest financial centers. So if you cut off their cash flow in New York, you're going to cut off a major lifeline to their entire regime. And I believe that Trump and the Patriots, knowing that Mamdani is a radical leftist, he's going to be against the Jews, against the small hats. Even though here he is in the picture, shaking hands with them. And there's plenty of pictures of him partying with them and hanging out with them and being buddies with them and all that. But behind the scenes, he's talking about cutting off city funds to their operations. And I think, honestly, as much as I disagree with Mamdani and I think he's an idiot, I think this move here is what Trump needed him to be in there to do. Because if Trump did it or a conservative did it, they'd be racist, they'd be anti-Semitic, they'd be every name in the book. So what do? You put a radical leftist Muslim up there and have him do it, because he's already got his victimhood card. So good luck criticizing him. But if he does pull the plug on the small hats in New York with the city money, with the city contracts, I'd say that's a win for America. I would say Mamdani actually delivered a win for America. So, he could be a communist or whatever it is that, he's shown himself to be. And he's definitely a snake and a liar, because 90% of the bullshit he promised the people, they're not getting. So he's 99% full of shit, in my opinion. But I believe that he's really going to do this thing with cutting off the New York City money to the small hats. I believe he's going to do it. Where is slide number 3? There we go. Slide number 3. California Governor Gavin Newsom told a Houston rally that President Trump sent ICE agents to intimidate voters on Election Day, but the crowd still turned out for the Prop 50 poll in his state. So Gavin Newsom is clearly demonstrating that either he's completely ignorant to what ICE's job actually is, or he knows that the people he's speaking to are completely ignorant to what ICE's job actually is. And ICE's job is to enforce immigration law. And when you're dealing with immigration, the individuals going through the immigration process, they are not U.S. citizens, because immigration is for foreign nationals, not American nationals. So if ICE was out on Election Day, then obviously they weren't there to harass citizens who had the right to vote and were legally voting. They were there to find illegals who were non-citizens who were trying to vote, which is against the law. T. Riggle says Mamdani wants to legalize prostitution no matter the age of the woman. Crazy. Salutes, everyone. Oh, crazy. Salutes, everyone. Salute to you, T. Riggles. I did not know that, but I believe that. I totally believe that. I totally believe that Mamdani would propose something like that. Sire says, hey, it's Earl. Just wanted to let you know I'm Sire Father. I'm the guy that like all your posts on Facebook a few years back, and you thought it was weird. You probably don't remember me. I'm an original. No, I remember you, Sire Father. I definitely remember you, brother. You know what? I almost forgot to give you your wrench. I definitely remember you, Sire Father. Haven't seen you in a while, though. What about Stock says, we've all been here for years. Welcome back. Oh, breaking news. Apparently someone did find a picture of Trump grabbing a pussy. A photo has emerged of President Trump grabbing a pussy. Yep, that's what the pussy grabbing looks like to us. What up, E Nice? Now, speaking of false narratives, check this shit out. Oh, that's funny. Speaking of false narratives, where are those blue numbers? I need those blue numbers. Do I not have the blue fucking numbers? Come on, man. You got to be kidding me. I'm having a bad day. I'm having a bad day, people. Something's wrong. Something is wrong. So now I have to stop the screen share because I'm missing a bunch of freaking slides. So now I have to go into my email and open it up and re-download them. So let's do that. Just bear with me here, folks. We're trying to make some shit happen. Okay, so I did download them. Yeah, I did download them. I just didn't upload them. Download, upload. I don't even know which way is up anymore. Okay. Hopefully that did it. Hang on. I got to find the blue notes. There we go. I got them. I got the blue notes. Okay. Now we can share screen again. All right. All right. I think I got it. Are we back with the side view? All right, cool. So check this out. I don't know if you guys heard. Oh, what the fuck? What the fuck is this? All right, let's close you out. Is that the one? Nope. Let's close you out. All right. There we go. So, there we go. What about Stock says, I'm happy Citizen Man still has a sense of humor. Yeah, I try to be. I try to make people laugh and shit because this shit can get depressing. But anyway, so I don't know if you guys have heard the latest, but the Democrats apparently have published some emails from the Epstein files that apparently implicate Donald Trump. So now they're back trying to pull the old Trump is friends with Epstein lie. And if you browse YouTube for long enough, you'll start to see all these idiots repeating the same lie, because that's what happens when you don't pay attention to what's actually going on and you listen to too much mainstream media and you're a hack podcaster that just steals other people's content and just repeats what other people are saying. Because now you're starting to get this snowball effect where the lie is being repeated over and over and over again. I mean, how many times have they tried to make it seem like Donald Trump and Epstein were on the same page, when there's literal court documents that confirm that Donald Trump and Epstein are not on the same page? Right. What about Stock? The newfound evidence Biden didn't find. And remember remember the fake birthday card that they claimed Trump wrote to Epstein with the fake signature on it and all that shit? Well, this attempt at linking Trump to Epstein is no different. In fact, it's probably a little bit worse, because if you look at this whole email, right? Let me go full screen so you guys can see it better, because the font is kind of small. But if you look at this shit looks like something somebody literally just typed up in a Word document and made it look like it's a legitimate email. Because when WikiLeaks published Hillary Clinton's emails, they were not written in Times New Roman. Like, they literally just made this shit up. This is the second page. There's the third page. And I'll read it to you. And this is the evidence that debunks all that bullshit. Not to mention, Bill Barr, who was the attorney general at the time Epstein got arrested, said that Donald Trump was not involved with Epstein. Ghislaine Maxwell said that Donald Trump was not involved with Epstein. When Epstein got arrested and was first questioned, he did not make any mention of Donald Trump being involved with him when Donald Trump was the president at the time, presiding over the DOJ that was prosecuting him. Remember, 2019. Now, here we are 6 years later, and all of a sudden, they just magically found these emails that somebody typed up on their fucking laptop and put out as if they were from 2015 or 2011 or whenever the hell. So it says from G-Max, I guess that would be Ghislaine Maxwell, to gvacation@gmail.com. high importance. It says, I've been thinking about an original message from Jeffrey Epstein. I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. I don't even know what the fuck that even means. Victim, Mar-a-Lago. Trump said he asked me to resign. Never a member, ever. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop, whatever. It sounds so stupid. Why are they cut off like that? I think you should let him know. I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. If it really looks like he could win, you could save him generating a debt. Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey is a great guy and he has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. Tuesday, December 15th, 2015, Jeffrey Epstein wrote, if we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? I hear CNN planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in scrum afterwards. So they're trying to make it sound like Trump was down with Jeffrey Epstein. Mind you, the way they're broadcasting it, doesn't it sound like Donald Trump was the one emailing with Epstein? Because that was the impression I got when I watched the first couple of minutes of the first few videos I browsed through. And then upon actually reading the emails, I started to realize how full of shit they were. And again, this whole thing just looks so contrived and made up. Right? But again, you got Ghislaine Maxwell confirming that Donald Trump wasn't down with Epstein. You got William Barr, who said that if Trump was in the Epstein files, he would have leaked it himself, saying that Trump wasn't down with Epstein. And not only that, this lie is so ridiculous that it's even being debunked by a dead woman, Virginia Giuffre. Let's all not forget what Virginia Giuffre had said in 2016 deposition. Trump didn't partake in any sex with us, and she was one of the victims. And it's not true that he flirted with me. I didn't see him have sex with any of the girls. Trump was never in the presence of other girls. Right, because Trump saw what time it was with these motherfuckers and got the hell up out of there. How do you know who Donald Trump had sex with? Oh, I didn't physically see him have sex with any of the girls, so I can't say who he had sex with in his whole life or not. But I just know it wasn't with me when I was with other girls. And who were the other girls that you were with in Donald Trump's presence? None. She said, none. There, I worked for Donald Trump, and I've met him probably a few times. Donald Trump was also a good friend of Jeffrey's. That part is true. He didn't partake in any of the sex in any sex with any of us, but he flirted with us. It's true. It's not true that he flirted with me. Donald Trump never flirted with me. So she said he flirted with them, then she said he didn't flirt with me. So which one is it, Virginia? And they're saying that Virginia Giuffre is the witness. So the emails are fake. The whole thing is a fucking lie. And people seem to forget that if Trump was really down with Epstein, he would have went down with Epstein, because the fake news media would not have hesitated to put all that shit out. Why they wait this long? Oh, that's right, because they needed AI to get better so they could generate more fake photographs. They needed time to pass so people could forget what William Barr said about Trump not being involved. And they needed a new generation of kids who grew up in the Trump bad era, the Trump hate era, to become adults so they can be fed the lie and believe the lie. And that's pretty much where we're at with it now. But let's move on. Doge has discovered that there are 394 million Social Security recipients in the United States. There are only 334 million citizens in the U.S. What's your reaction? So there's more Social Security recipients than actual people in the country, 60 million more, in fact. Mind you, not everybody in the country is actually collecting Social Security. So there's way more people collecting Social Security than there should be. So where's all this money going? Where is it going? It's going to the families of individuals who have died, like how Jasmine Crockett and her family was collecting her dead relatives' Social Security checks. It's going to people with fake identities, identity theft. And I think a lot of that money is going to ghost accounts where it's being siphoned off by other government officials. But this is why the establishment was so against Doge, because every day Doge is finding more and more dirt and reporting on having more and more dirt on these people in terms of mishandling funds. Not only that, but a lot of indictments for financial crimes have been issued thanks to what was discovered in the Doge investigations. So something definitely has to be done about the Social Security situation, because we get a lot of money taken out of our W-2 paychecks to fund Social Security. And if we have hundreds of millions of people if we got hundreds of millions of people defrauding the system and they get removed, these names get removed from the system, and we cut down on that cost for Social Security, then that means the actual Social Security recipients, the legitimate ones who have earned those benefits, well, they actually will get to take home more money from their Social Security retirement plans than what they're getting now, because the money is being split so many ways to so many fraudulent accounts who shouldn't be seeing a penny of it. So for anybody to be mad at Doge for uncovering what they're uncovering means that they want the fraud to continue. They want the theft of tax dollars to continue. They want the ripping off of the American people to continue. Now, why would they want that? Because they benefit directly from it. What about Stock says, hey, Jay, do you still believe the military is the way according to Q? I believe everything is following the plan. Unfortunately, we don't have all the details, and that's a good thing. Yes, I do believe the military is the only way, and I believe the military is on top of everything. That's why you got military operations busting drug traffickers in the Caribbean. And then as a result of those drug busts in the Caribbean, we're catching major drug busts up here in the United States because those people are snitching on their buyers. So, yeah, the military is definitely working. And remember, the local police forces are so corrupt. The FBI is still pretty corrupt, even though hundreds of thousands of agents got cut loose because they're all corrupt. Now, speaking of corruption, APAC Shakur, aka Brandon Tatum. People like Brandon Tatum, and I'm gonna get a little racial here because Brandon Tatum came on the political scene as a big name black conservative, right? That's supposed to be Tupac's body with Brandon Tatum's face on it. That's funny. APAC Shakur. That is hilarious. But Brandon Tatum is supposed to be one of the biggest names amongst the black conservatives. But I've always taken issue with Brandon Tatum for the fact that he's not an honest man. He just isn't. And the way he's been sucking up to Israel and kissing up to Israel definitely confirms that he is not an honest man. And I discovered that he was a dishonest man when these police shootings would happen. You know, when there was all these police shootings being broadcast in 2020 and whatnot, in 2019, some of those shootings would be legitimate. Some of those shootings, the cops had to do what they had to do. But there were other instances where the shootings did not have to happen and the cops did not have to shoot because the suspect was not posing a direct threat to their lives. Right? So for somebody who would be calling it down the middle, you would say, you know, you would examine each situation case by case and say, well, in this particular case, the suspect did have a weapon. The suspect was resisting arrest. The suspect was being combative, and the weapon was a deadly weapon, and deadly force had to be used. And then in the instances where the cops were dead wrong and the suspect did nothing, but the cops still shot him, you know, you would call that out and say, hey, that's a bad shoot. Those cops need to be brought to justice. But Brandon Tatum never called it down the middle with the police. He always found a way to defend the police. And I never liked that about him. I always thought he was a bullshitter. He was a bullshit artist for that. Because when you see a police shooting where clearly the cop is in the wrong, it's very important for the safety and the well-being of your fellow Americans to actually call it out. Because if we got dangerous individuals who are mentally unstable running around with guns and badges, we got a problem. But if everybody took Brandon Tatum's position, those mentally ill cops with guns and badges running around terrorizing the public, well, they would get a free pass. But Brandon Tatum would defend the cops, whether they were right or wrong. And I saw him as being dishonest, and I did not like him for that. And I never followed him. And I'm glad that I followed my instincts when it came to him, because now that we witnessed one of the worst, most brutal genocides of the Palestinian people by Israel in the last couple of years. And anybody with half a brain and two eyes can see that Israel is wrong. Brandon Tatum, the so-called black conservative, is defending them. E.T. Williams, the junkyard dog. Yo, whatever happened to E.T. Williams? The junkyard dog. I used to like him. He used to come on Alex Jones all the time. But I'm not surprised to see Brandon Tatum sucking up to Israel now. I'm not surprised that he sold out. And as a black conservative, I have to call it out, and I have to say that Brandon Tatum does not speak for black conservatives. Brandon Tatum speaks for Israel and Israel alone. And he uses Christianity as his excuse to support those genocidal maniacs of the Zionist regime, which is even more dumb. Because those Zionists do not like Christians. They hate Christians. And this is why people like Brandon Tatum running around calling themselves black conservatives is causing a lot of black people who are smart enough to know that the Democrat Party is full of shit and that there's at least a little glimmer of hope with the Republican Party. You know, when they come over to the Republican side to see, hey, what are the black conservatives talking about? Because I'm black and I want to know what my fellow black folks on the other side of the aisle is saying. And they come across a sold out clown like APAC Shakur over here. They go right back into political neutralization and they say, you know what, I'm not getting involved in politics because the Democrat Party is stupid and these Republicans are even more stupid. The Democrat Party is stupid because they're over here supporting illegal aliens, and the Republican Party is stupid because they're over here supporting fucking genocide while claiming to be Christians. You see? So his presence as conservatives, we must unanimously reject and denounce Brandon Tatum and not allow him to call himself a conservative, because conservatives are supposed to have a moral compass and are supposed to value life. This is why we're against abortion, right? So why the fuck are we defending genocide? And it's funny because you should listen to Brandon Tatum talk about abortion and how much he hates abortion. But he's okay with Israel bombing little kids, though. He's okay with that. Israeli snipers shooting little babies in the head and the neck. He's okay with that, though. Fucking clown. And it's because of clowns like him is what makes it so difficult for us black conservatives to, one, exist in other spaces with people who don't think like us, and two, get those people in those other spaces to see it from our perspective, because nobody is going to put themselves in the shoes of APAC Shakur and see why and try to figure out or try to understand why defending Israel is why Israel is even worth defending in the first place. So ever since I've learned that, ever since I figured out that Brandon Tatum was a total cop sucker, I never supported him. I never followed him. In fact, I thought he was very disingenuous, because when he first came on the scene in media, Alex Jones brought him on the show, and he was the Officer Tatum, and he came on the show in his uniform and all that shit, and he was talking. And then after he started gaining popularity, because, you know, conservative America was enamored with this young, smart black conservative and shit with a different perspective, and he decided to quit being a cop and went into media. That was my first indicator that this man is a total sellout, because most good people who have good hearts, like Brandon Tatum claims to have, when they decide to become cops, they do that because it's a passion of theirs, and they stick with it because that's the only way they can make a difference, you know, on the street. So if their intention in becoming a cop is to be noble, do the right thing, and uphold the law, then there's not very many things in this world that would deter them from being a cop. But you see, what happened with Tatum was, when he started live streaming and he started seeing how much money he could make live streaming, he said, fuck this cop shit. I'm doing media now. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, that is what you call a grifter. He is a grifter, and he's always been a grifter. He was just a more sophisticated one. And when Israel came around and offered him that check, he took it, because he was never about the people. He was about the money. Watch out for people like this. And as much as we talk about the Democrats and the liberals, as much as we talk about the liberal Democrats and the socialists and the communists, we got snakes in our own damn circle. Too many to count, in fact. And any conservative, whether black or white, don't matter. any conservative that's still at this point defending Israel, they're not conservatives. They're not conservatives. Yeah, Dave the Mace, being a cop is a tough job. My baby sister is a cop. And she's really in it to make a difference because she's been a cop for several years. And as tough as it is, she doesn't want to quit because she loves what she does. She enjoys what she does. If she was a grifter like Tatum, you know what she would have started doing? Making TikToks and doing videos in her uniform, and then eventually quit her job so she can go on social media and start making money that way, you know, like Tatum did. That's what grifters do. Back when I had my big channel in 2020 and 2021, I was doing 5 nights a week, making a minimum of $500 a show. That's $2,500 a week off live streams. I could have quit my day job and said, fuck it, I'm doing YouTube now because I'm making more money than ever. But I didn't do that. I kept my day job. You know why? Because I was passionate about working with my hands and doing what I do. And I enjoyed working with my hands and doing what I do. And for me, although the money was great on YouTube, it wasn't about the money. And that's why when I started getting censored and I started losing money and losing donors, I still stayed in it, didn't I? This is channel number 16 that you're watching me on right now. Does that sound like a grifter to you, or does that sound like a man that's passionate about what he does and is willing to overcome any challenge that's put in front of him in order to get the message out? Because again, if I was a grifter, I would have did like that clown, Amazing Lucas. I would have went from being a Trump supporter to a Trump hater, because being a Trump hater apparently pays more. And I would have been sitting up here lying like Tatum to get that check from the Zionists. So when I say Tatum is a grifter and he's not to be trusted, I mean that shit. I never trusted him. I never liked him. So again, as much as we have to say about the liberals and the Democrats, lest we not overlook the snakes in our own circle. We got plenty of them. But speaking of liberals and Democrats, of course, liberalism is a mental disorder. White liberal woman kisses feet of sassy Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. So cringe. Yes, it's cringe. And you want to talk about personality worship? You see, us Trump supporters, we get accused of personality worship a lot. They like to say, oh, they only support Trump because they worship his personality and they're not really looking at, you know, who he is or what he's doing and this and that. They just like him because he's Trump and he is who he is or whatever. But really, we support Trump because we support his agenda. What he's doing with the government is the very thing that we've all been wanting to see done, right? The wasteful spending get rolled back. The taxes get cut and import taxes get implemented so we could bring in extra outside revenue. The criminals in government getting indicted and going to jail. The illegals that hop the border to come to flood into our country getting deported. That's what we support. And that's why we support Trump. Severing ties with Israel, making a clean break. That's what Trump's doing, and that's why we support Trump. Damn, Dave the Mace. Any, mini, miny, mo. Catch a Negro by the toe. Damn, Dave the Mace. That was cold. That was cold, sir. But this is how these liberals think. They're the ones that engage in the personality worship. Because I guarantee you that white liberal woman that's kissing Jasmine Crockett's feet, if you ask her what policies from the Democrat Party that she supports, she couldn't tell you. Because they're not there. They're not involved in politics for policy. They're there because they want to see their token black woman, their token blackies, their coons dance. They're there to see the monkeys dance. That's all it is. And people like this woman kissing Jasmine Crockett's feet should not be voting. But this should be, of all the reasons I've given you guys why it's important to vote, this is what happens when you don't vote. The smart people that are pragmatists and logical thinkers that understand the policies and how the policies will affect society, if those people don't go vote for the right representation, guess who's showing up in droves on election day? You guessed it, the feet kissers, the crazies, and they're going to vote en masse. In some cases, more than once. That's who's going to vote. So the only choices we're faced with when it comes to voting or not voting is this: either you get out and vote and choose your own representation, or you sit on your ass, let the dummies go out and vote, and let them choose your representation for you. Those are your options. Those are your options. Yeah, Dave, I know what you were getting at. I know what you was getting at. That little nursery rhyme, any, meeny, miny, mo, catch a nigger by his toe. Yeah. I know what you were getting at. That's why I said it the way I said it. I knew exactly what you meant. It might have went over some other people's heads, but I knew what you meant. I'm from upstate New York, one of the most racist places in America, believe it or not. I don't think there was ever a civil rights movement in upstate New York. But this is why I've always been a strong advocate of voting and getting involved in your politics, because if you don't vote, this is who's selecting your leaders. How do you think Kamala made it to be a presidential candidate? Excuse me. Because these people. So if there's no other reason to vote other than, so if you can't think of a legitimate reason why you should get out there on election day and invest a few hours of your time to cast your ballot, just remember, there's grown ass motherfuckers out there that are kissing crazy people's feet, because Jasmine Crockett is a nut job herself, that are kissing feet in public, worshiping other human beings that are going out and voting. And if our votes don't override their votes, because the crazy people, they're a very small percentage of the population. The majority of the people in America are actually honest, hardworking, free-thinking individuals. We just don't get on the internet and make too much noise like the crazy people do. That's why there's only just a few of us out here really putting the truth out. And everybody else is pretty much a damn near a sellout. But if we, the normal people, get out there and our votes override the votes of the crazies, we won't have half the problems that we have. And I always, every time I talk about this, I mention what Malcolm X said. I believe it was in his Berkeley interview. Malcolm X said there's 11 million. This was back in the 60s. So that those numbers probably have changed by now. He said there's 11 million eligible black voters in America. Only about 2 to 3 million of those eligible voters actually vote. And look how much political sway they have, to the point where the Democrats pandered to them, the Republicans pandered to them, because the black vote is the deciding vote. Now, Malcolm didn't say all that. That was my part, my addition to it. But the 11 million eligible voters compared to the 2 to 3 million who actually vote, if all 11 million of them voted, they would totally control American politics on both sides of the aisle, up and down. And it's the same dynamic today, but you just take the black out of it. There's millions and millions and millions of eligible voters with sharp minds and know what's going on and know that the Democrats are full of shit. And almost half the Republicans are full of shit too, so you have to do some vetting. They know this. But a lot of times they choose to sit on their ass and not vote. And if they got out and voted, things would change very quickly. See? Fination comes in and says, voting is worthless. Voting is worthless. Well, why don't you tell that to the millions of people that voted in Barack Obama? Because they got their representation. The gays got their superpowers because they voted. And that's the and what Fination says here. You know what? Matter of fact, hold on. I need to put that on screen because we need to address that. What Fination said, or Fination, or whatever their name is, that is the attitude right there that clears the way for these foreign infiltrators to get in. Because if the Somalis, what about Stock says, Citizen Man is going to put us all in chains. Oh, Fee Nation's been in here saying stupid shit. Hold on. Let me go to the other stupid shit. Here. This is the attitude right here that's allowed the deep state and these foreign infiltrators to take over our country. If the Somalis in Minnesota thought like this, they wouldn't have gotten Ilhan Omar into Congress. Your votes always matter. You know why? Because if the system is rigged, the legitimate votes act as a counterbalance to prove that the system is rigged. Hell, if your votes didn't matter, they wouldn't have to rig the fucking system in the first place. Now, would they, genius? But you see, most people that don't care about voting, they don't understand the importance of voting. This is why all these foreigners are flooding over here and they're voting in your elections and they're voting in fucking foreigners that can barely speak English to rule over you. While you sit there saying, don't ever vote, don't give them your power. Dumbass, you not voting is giving them your power. You not voting is allowing them to go vote unchallenged. So you're literally encouraging people to give them your power while saying don't give them your power. You see, but this is how the propaganda works. They infect your mind with these what's the word? With these ass backwards thoughts. And they get you to actually believe this ass backwards shit. That's like saying, don't fight and you'll win the war. No, Fee Nation, we vote. Have you read the Constitution? We don't vote for people to rule over us. We vote for people to represent us. There's a difference. The Constitution was actually modeled after the Iroquois Federation Articles of Incorporation. Well, not Articles of Incorporation, Articles of Organization, or something like that. It was called something like that, but it wasn't called the Constitution. The founders used that document to call it the Constitution. But what it was all these tribes all around the Northeast, right? They all had elections, and they would vote for one person to go meet with the other representatives from the other tribes, and they would then make decisions as to what they would do in terms of how they would allot the land, what rules would they have in place, what punishments for what crimes, and so on and so forth. And it ended up being a representative form of government where all the people were equally represented. You see, in America, our elected officials, our elected politicians are actually servants whose job it is to represent us. But since the system has been so corrupted because so many Americans decided not to get involved in their own political system, the foreigners came in from countries where they do have rulership over them and they don't understand the concept of representation. And they come here and they vote for people to not only rule over them, but to also rule over us. So no, I don't vote for people to rule over me. I vote for people to represent me. There's a difference. Your representative does what you say. Your rulers make you do what they say. There's a difference. So no, we're not voting for people to rule over us. And again, that's another one of those idiotic thoughts that the establishment, through their propaganda machine, has implanted into the minds of most well-meaning Americans who could be controlling the political system in their country, but because their minds have been infected with these low-level, one-track-minded thoughts, they relinquish their political power. And then these foreigners come in and they see that open door and that open opportunity to gain power in their country and rule over the citizens of the country. And they do just that. They do just that. Look at New York, fucking Mayor Mamdani. What the fuck is a Mamdani? But he's the mayor of one of the biggest fucking cities in the country. How did that happen? Did you know that 40% of the population in New York City, over 40% of the population in New York City are foreign born? Okay, Fee Nation. Now you can get the fuck out of here. This motherfucker said, I have no clue. I literally just sat there and explained the detriment of sitting out of your own political process in your country. And all this jackass could say is, dude, you have no clue. Where's all your content, Fee Nation, that breaks this shit down in such elaborate detail? Oh, right. You're just a viewer. If you're so smart and know so fucking much, why are you in my chat and not doing your own live stream, broadcasting your own message? That's what you should be doing. And the fact that you're over here saying stupid shit like, I have no clue, when I have more of a clue than you do, that clearly demonstrates how retarded you are. And again, it's these dumbed down thoughts that are implanted in people's minds, and fools like Fee Nation, they start to parrot it and repeat it because it sounds cool and it probably makes them feel good to say it, but it's to their own detriment. It's to their own detriment. This is exactly how our country got taken over. And it's funny because a lot of these you shouldn't vote type of assholes, they all claim they love and respect Malcolm X. Malcolm X was one of the biggest advocates for voting because he understood the importance of politics. And if you think politics is a game while complaining about what the politicians are doing, you are slow. You are retarded. Let's not fight because fighting is bad, but we'll win the war. Like, no, you have to fucking fight to win the war, dummy. That's like having your whole basketball team sitting on the bench while the other team is just fucking hitting dunks all day long, open court, and the team sitting on the bench is wondering why they're losing. Yeah, Barnes. They hate the system because they don't understand that the system that we're living under currently is the corporate structure. It's not the constitutional republic. But the only way to restore the constitutional republic is to vote for constitutional representatives. Because voting for lawyers and corporate representatives, corporate rulers, is how we got to where we are now. And back to what I was saying before that jackass got me off my square a little bit. In a rigged election, your votes matter. In fact, they matter more because they serve as a counterbalance to prove that there was fraud. Because if nobody voted and everybody voted, nobody voted the opposite way, and everybody voted the same way, there would be no way to prove that there was fraud. So even though you know that your candidate's going to lose because the election is rigged, by you voting, what you're doing is you're creating a paper trail of election fraud, because they would have to commit some level of election fraud in order to wipe away your vote. And that's what they did in 2020. All the ballots they were dumping. The Trump votes that they were dumping. People went to jail over that shit. We just didn't hear about it. In an election that's not so heavily rigged, voting in larger numbers can actually overwhelm and can override the rigging. 2016, the election was rigged for Hillary Clinton, but Donald Trump won because 15% of his voters were first-time voters. So he got an overwhelming majority that was able to surpass the amount of fraud they had put in place to make sure Hillary won. So yes, your votes do matter in either proving that there's election fraud or overriding the election fraud. Because again, if we listen to retards like Fee Nation and we don't vote, guess who is voting? The foot kissers. That's who's voting. And if Fee Nation thinks that I'm saying we should vote so people would rule over us, well, you got to remember, Fee Nation, if the foot kissers vote, they're literally voting for people to rule over them because they're over there kissing their fucking feet. You really want these people's votes to outnumber your votes? You really want these people deciding who gets to be in charge? You have to be out of your fucking mind if you think I'm just going to sit on my ass and let these motherfuckers decide who gets to be in charge. You out of your fucking mind. And anybody who believes you and sides with you and agrees with you, they're out of their fucking minds too. All right, looking for slide number 8. Where the fuck is it? There we go. So, you guys remember when I showed you that picture of Diddy in prison, and I couldn't figure out if he was still at Fort Dix? Well, apparently, Diddy is at Fort Dix. So the judge did grant his request to remain at Fort Dix. And this is supposed to be a picture of his mugshot. Diddy's Fort Dix mugshot surfaces. He is serving a 4-year sentence. He is set to be released in 2028. So there's your boy Diddy. Now, what's crazy is Diddy was on the Gitmo list back in 2018 and was said to be amongst the celebrities and the famous people that were picked up by the military, shipped off to Gitmo and put on trial. So how is it that Diddy finally went on trial in 2023? No, not 2023, sorry. In 2025. How is it that he finally got put on trial now? Well, that was all for show, because that was his public exit story to basically tarnish his reputation and make him look, like a villain, because he was a villain. Now, what they put him in jail for, I think, was light work, and there's a lot more heavy shit that they could have locked him up for. And you see how grainy this picture looks? This mugshot was supposed to have been taken in 2025. This mugshot picture looks pretty fucking old. It looks like the picture of a picture on a screen. I believe this is the real Diddy, and this is when he was actually taken into custody back in 2019. Yeah, ain't no just for men in prison. Ain't no just for men in prison. But yeah, so Diddy is still at Fort Dix. Apparently having the time of his life with all the dicks at Fort Dix. Now, here's an interesting topic that everybody's talking about. And I think that this is important and is deserving of an explanation, because this whole 50-year mortgage thing that Trump is proposing, a lot of people are really starting to show how financially ignorant and illiterate they are by the things that they're saying in response to this proposal. So Trump announces 50-year mortgages. Your $400,000 house payment drops from $3,327 to $2,577 per month. These are just, hypothetical figures. And the interest you pay to the bank doubles over the loan's lifetime. What is your reaction? Okay, now let's get into it. It is true that you will end up paying more interest to the bank with a longer term. The longer your term is, the more interest you accrue over that period. But the longer your term is, the lower your payments are. So the downside is, at the end of it all, if you stretch all the payments out throughout the whole 50 years, you will inevitably have paid more for your house, or a hell of a lot more for your house than what you could have paid. But the upside is a lot better than it weighs a lot more than the downside, meaning I would be in favor of a 50-year mortgage. And here's why. Because I will not stretch my mortgage out all 50 years. I will pay it off early. And here's how you do that. If you have a significantly lower mortgage payment, that means that you will have more money in your pocket every month. So instead of paying that $3,000 mortgage, you're paying $1,800. So that's an extra $1,200 a month you're able to save now. Right? So You could pay the same amount you would pay if you were on a 30-year mortgage and end up paying it off in 30 years or less. Or you could use that money that you're saving, put a few thousand into some healthy investments, make that money turn over, flip that money, and then you use the investment the investment returns to put towards paying off your mortgage early. So that way you don't pay all that fucking interest, right? Here's the other strategy. If you are going to pay the interest and stretch it out all 50 years, if your mortgage payment is $3,000 and you're looking to use that property as a rental, now you got to rent that thing out for $3,500, $4,000 a month. Good luck finding tenants to pay that, regular average working folks. But if your mortgage payment is $2,000 a month or $1,800 a month, if you charge $2,500 a month for rent, you're more likely to get consistent tenants that are going to pay that rent, put that extra money in your pocket, and they'll pay off your mortgage for you while paying you in the process. So with a lower mortgage payment, rent goes down. Yes, Barnes, the 50-year mortgage thing is to make Dave the May says, hey, citizen man, gotta go. Thanks for the typing space. Peace out. Peace to you, Dave. Appreciate you coming through, brother. So yeah, making the payments cheaper will make home ownership more affordable for more Americans. And that's what it's about. Now, let me tell y'all something. In my landscape business, I use very expensive equipment, right? And in the construction portion too. And my most expensive piece of equipment can cost anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000, depending on the brand and whatnot, right? When my $3,000 piece of equipment broke down and I had to replace it in a hurry, I didn't have $3,000 to spend offhand, but I had good credit, so I was able to finance a new machine, right? And I got the quickest deal I could find because I had to get back to work. So I took a bad deal, 12-month financing, right? Paying a few $100 weekly to finance it, or monthly, to finance it, as much as damn near a car payment to finance my equipment so I can stay working. The interest would have driven that price up from $3,000 to $5,500 had I stretched it out throughout the 12-month term, right? So if I would have just consistently made the payments every month for 12 months, I would have ended up paying $5,500 for a $3,000 piece of equipment. But the finance company had a 90-day payoff option where within 90 days, if you can pay off the shelf price or the purchase price of your equipment, you would only have to pay a $70 fee for the early payoff and you own your equipment outright. So guess what I did? I worked longer days. I stretched my jobs out a little bit more and try to bring in a little bit more money than I normally would. And every week when I got paid for my contract, I would put a lump sum of cash on the equipment, on the machine. And guess what? Within a month, I paid it off. Why? Because I saw the value in paying it off early so it can start paying me. But let's say I didn't have that ability. Let's say I didn't have the capability to increase my income enough to where I can dump that extra money into paying off the machine. Then guess what? I would have been struggling with the payments all 12 months. But it would have been a lot easier to pay $600 a month rather than $1,500 a month or $3,000 in a month. So just because it's a 50-year mortgage, and it means if you stretch it out throughout the whole term, you're going to pay more in interest, it does not mean it's a bad deal. It'll only become a bad deal if you make it last 50 years. You see, when you're investing, there's a thing called long-term investments and short-term investments. So when you purchase a house, it's a long-term investment, right? So you're planning on taking years before you pay off the price of this house. But if your monthly payments are so cheap to where you can have extra cash to put towards something else that can generate more money, then what you do is you use that extra cash to make short-term investments. And those short-term investments, as they pay you your returns, those returns can then go into funding your long-term investment. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how it's supposed to go. That's how you're supposed to play it. And let's say if it's a rental property, you can stretch that whole shit out for the whole 50 years. And guess what? Your tenants are going to pay it off. They're going to pay that shit off for you and pay you in the process. So you win either way. So it don't matter how much interest they put on it. As long as somebody else is living there and somebody else is paying your rent covers your mortgage plus your profits. And your profits should be enough to pay you something decent and at least pay one or two of your bills in your house bare minimum and cover the maintenance costs of your rental property. So there's more of an upside to the 50-year mortgage than a downside. And anybody that's trying to sell it to you from the downside, they don't know shit about financing. They're not hustlers. They don't know how to hustle. And they don't know what opportunity looks like. They don't know. That's the thing. They don't know what opportunity looks like because this is an opportunity. And anybody that's saying this is a bad thing, that means that they can't see the opportunity. And that's been the problem for a lot of Americans that complain about foreigners coming to America and getting ahead economically. The foreigners come here to America, and because they're new to America, they notice everything. Because they come from places where these little opportunities to get ahead don't exist. So every opportunity that presents itself, they'll pick up on it faster than the Americans that's been here their whole lives. Because we, for the most part, have been taking these opportunities for granted, so much so that we don't even see the opportunities. Think about it. How many drug dealers live in the hood, drive $80,000, $100,000 cars, but they live in the hood where all the houses are broken down, slumlord-owned rental properties? And they have enough money in that Nike shoebox in their closet to buy up the whole block, renovate all the houses, and put their people in a better condition. But they don't do it. They'll buy the cars, they'll buy the jewelry, they'll splurge on the hoes. And then when the other groups who don't live that lifestyle come in with their money and they start buying up the hood, fixing it up and raising the rent, then they cry gentrification. Why? Because the opportunity to own that block was missed. You didn't see it. It's like I call it this, right? It's like you're selling a house. A house is for sale. and it's freshly renovated, but there are minor flaws because, no renovation is 100% perfect. So there's always going to be a little, something off here and there, right? It'll never be perfect. So every imperfection in that brand new house, we could compare to every opportunity in American society, right? And the original owners of that house who've lived in that house for 20 years, they would overlook those imperfections because they've been there so long that they stop noticing. They don't notice them. But if a new buyer comes in, a new potential buyer comes in to explore and examine the house to see if this is something they would actually want to buy, they would notice every imperfection or almost every imperfection because it's a new set of eyes. It's the same way with the opportunities in American society. We're the homeowners that have lived here for 20 years, so we don't see the little imperfections or the little opportunities. But the foreigners that come here to come make a new life here, they're looking at everything and they're noticing every imperfection, or in other words, every opportunity. And they start to take advantage of those opportunities. And you know what those foreigners are saying when they see Trump with this 50-year mortgage thing? They're salivating and they're rubbing their hands together doing the Birdman rub because they're saying my mortgage is going to be half of what it is, which means I could rent this motherfucker out and make a killing. Meanwhile, the complacent Americans who don't see the opportunity are like, oh, we're going to pay so much in interest. So the foreigners are looking at the opportunity to make money in the here and now, while the Americans, the complacent Americans, are sitting there crying about potential expenses they're going to face in 50 fucking years. You see what I'm saying? You got to know how to take advantage of the opportunities. You have to see the opportunity in every situation. In every situation, whether good or bad, there is an opportunity to make something positive out of it. You just have to be able to see it. My end goal or my dream for myself, my retirement plan, is to own multifamily rental properties. That's my retirement plan. That's what I want to do for my retirement. I want to be a rich old man with a couple of apartment buildings occupied with good tenants that pay on time. So all I got to do is sit back, collect my money every month, and pay my mortgage. That's it. And any work that needs to be done, I hire somebody. That's my goal. And with this 50-year mortgage plan, my goal just became 20 times more attainable. Because now the profit margins for rental properties would be significantly increased, which means my retirement would be even sweeter if I were to ever be able to afford these multifamily rental properties. And my goal to get to raising the funds to be able to even do that is wholesaling, flipping contracts, working my regular job, and doing my broadcasts and getting paid for my broadcasts. All that extra money I'll now be able to start putting aside and saving up so I can have a significant enough down payment to where I can get an 80%, of the purchase price financing and still have some cash to do the rehabs and all that shit. So that way I can actually get the ball rolling. Because once I get in good with one lender and I pay one lender off, I can work with that lender again. That's the goal. So I have to raise about, 40 or 50 grand to put into the project, and then I can go borrow the money to complete the projects and put them on the market. And that 50-year mortgage thing is going to make rent cheaper. And that's what a lot of people also fail to realize. Rent is going to be cheaper. So if you don't plan on owning property, or if you have kids that are probably going to be having to get out in the world in the next couple of years, at least they won't have to deal with the shit that we're dealing with this high ass rent, and it almost being damn near impossible to put a roof over your head. So that's my take on the 50-year mortgage thing. I think it's more of an opportunity than a detriment. And Trump, being the businessman that he is, he's putting it out there, but he's not going to give you the keys to figure out the puzzle. He's going to put it out there, and only those who are smart enough to figure out the puzzle are going to know how to take advantage of the opportunity that's hidden in that proposal. But the people that are going to sit around and complain about it, they'll never see the opportunity. Thus, they'll be the ones paying us rent. That's what that amounts to. So Trump issues pardons. President Donald Trump recently issued sweeping pardons to Rudy Giuliani, Mark Meadows, and over 70 others involved in alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Many face charges in Georgia for a scheme involving an alternate slate of electors. U.S. pardon attorney Ed Martin stated the proclamation frames the move as ending a grave national injustice. All right, so these are the people involved in Fani Willis's case, the efforts to overturn the 2020 election. And she was having them all indicted and brought up on charges, and some of them actually went to jail. But Trump finally just pardoned everybody. So you can suck it, Fani Willis. You can suck it. And it's funny, though, because Trump never pardoned Diddy. Remember, he mentioned he'll think about pardoning Diddy. Well, it seems like he thought about it, because he issued his pardons, and Diddy did not make the list. So kudos to Trump for that. You keep that pervert right where the fuck he's at. Now, Candace Owens has been, she's been kind of going in a lot with this Charlie Kirk situation. And she broadcasted as if Charlie Kirk is actually dead. I do not believe that he's dead, and I'm sure many of you would agree with me. Of course, based on the research and the evidence that I've presented in those particular streams. But here's another interesting twist. Candace Owens reveals that Kash Patel and the FBI seized all surveillance footage from the hospital where Charlie Kirk was taken. Well, Kash Patel did say, Charlie, I'll see you in Valhalla, right? So if Charlie Kirk actually isn't dead, then they would have to seize the surveillance footage from the hospital, because the surveillance footage would show, well, no Charlie Kirk showing up at the hospital. Kind of reminds me of the Epstein thing, right? Where Epstein allegedly killed himself, but we don't believe he killed himself, and we don't even believe he's dead for that matter. And it just so happened to be the night that the cameras weren't working. Go figure. Go figure. So they're not covering up for the killers or the alleged killers. They're covering for Charlie to help maintain the perception that he's actually dead. Because let's say the hospital did release the video footage, right? And we got to see that there is no Charlie Kirk in the video footage. Then the question would be, well, where did he go? Where did they take him? And then the whole idea that he faked his death would actually start to gain more traction, because that would be one of the answers, one of the logical answers to this question. So I think the footage was not taken to cover for Israel. The footage was taken to cover for Charlie, because people have to believe that he's actually dead for the plan to work. Oh, so here's a fun one. Michelle Obama. Things are about to get interesting. Things are about to get real interesting. And guys, please don't forget to hit the Cash App, hit the PayPal, hit the Venmo, and support the show. Shout out to my supporters that have supported so far. Appreciate all of you guys. We got 4 people on the board. We need 6 more to hit that goal. So please, please, please don't forget to support the show. All right. All right. So Michelle Obama has been linked to a shell company that funds Antifa rioters, then provides them with bail money. Kamala Harris was doing this too. We intend to present that evidence to a grand jury, Attorney General Pam Bondi says. So the evidence that Michelle Obama was aiding and abetting a domestic terrorist organization is now going to be presented to a grand jury. So sometime here in the next coming days or weeks, we might hear about an indictment against Michelle Obama. So be on the lookout for that, because I'm pretty sure her indictment is going to come down with a bunch of other indictments, because she's not the only person who did this to aid and abet Antifa. Kamala Harris was also collecting donations to bail them out of jail in 2020. So that's going to be a fun one to watch, because if Michelle Obama gets convicted and goes to prison, I'm more curious about what prison they'll send her to, the men's prison or the women's prison. That's what I want to see. Like, I know she's going to prison. I just want to know which prison she's going to. That's why I'll follow it. I put my money on the men's prison. Breaking. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt just dropped a political bombshell. I'm more than ready to show the evidence. Governor Gavin Newsom, that's from California, is being investigated for a criminal scheme involving the registration of illegal immigrants to vote through his universal mail-in ballot program. If confirmed, this would mark one of the biggest election scandals in American history, a direct attempt to undermine the integrity of the vote in the nation's largest state. Leavitt says evidence is being compiled and will be released soon. All eyes on California. So the hammer's coming down, the heat's finally coming down, and I sure would love to see how these cases conclude. I can't wait to see the end of it. And it gets better, y'all. It gets better. Check this out. Brad Lander, Jermaine Williams, and 13 other New York City officials arrested by feds for obstructing immigration court. Democrats call it a scandal, saying Americans didn't vote for this. Be honest. Is this what you voted for? Hell yes, what I voted for. Really, Barnes? Barnes Homestead says Real Raw News reports that 250 DOJ lawyers rounded up and sent to Marine base in Guam for tribunals. I believe it. I believe it. And you remember when Barnes, you remember when when AG Pam Bondi was instructing all the federal prosecutors to stay away from the from the National Bar Association events? You remember when I reported on that? And I was saying that what Pam Bondi was doing was preventing the federal prosecutors who would be eventually prosecuting these same people from mingling with them at these social events, which would allow these people the opportunity to either bribe or intimidate the prosecutors into throwing the cases. They could compromise the cases by socializing with each other. So the fact that Pam Bondi was keeping the federal prosecutors away from the Bar Association events was the first indicator that she was preparing for high-level prosecutions. And now we have news that 250 DOJ lawyers, the same lawyers that Pam Bondi told to abstain from the Bar Association events, I would presume, are now participating in military tribunals. And you know who those tribunals are against? The funders, organizers, and the people who are being snatched up by special forces under the guise of National Guard crime prevention. So it's all coming together and it all makes sense. Shout out to Chinana for the Cash App. She says, for another great podcast. Appreciate you, Chinana. We got 5 on the board, y'all. We're halfway there. So things are getting hot. Shit is moving. People said we want to see arrests, right? I want to see arrests. Well, guess what? There's more corruption at the local level than at the federal level. You want to see politicians in handcuffs? There you go. You're seeing it. It's happening. You just got to come watch Citizen Man to get that front row seat. Check this one out. Breaking: Coldwater, Kansas Mayor Joe Ceballos, a Mexican national, has been charged with illegally voting multiple times in U.S. elections. Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach charged Ceballos with 3 counts of voting without being qualified and 3 counts of election perjury. So let me get this straight. This motherfucker is a Mexican national, but he's a mayor of an American city. How the fuck did you think that happened? Mexicans voted for him. Duh. Meanwhile, the American people are sitting on their asses saying, saying what Fentanyl Nation or whatever the fuck his name was saying. Don't vote. Don't vote. Voting is worthless. Yeah, let the Mexicans vote in fucking Mayor Taco. Yeah. That's what you get when you don't vote, America. This is what you get. I was literally just saying this, and I wish I would have pulled up this fucking slide when fucking Fentanyl Brains was over here talking that dumb shit. The Americans didn't vote, but the Mexicans did. And what did they elect? A literal foreigner who then turned around and voted illegally in our elections. That's what voting without being qualified is. He couldn't register to vote because you have to be an American citizen to vote, either whether naturalized or born citizen. You have to be a citizen. Your passport got to be blue. You know what Young Jeezy said when Obama got elected and all the rappers were making the Obama dick-sucking songs? My president is black. My passport's blue. That is what he said, isn't it? Those were the words, right? Where my hip hop heads at? Is that what he said? No, it was my Lambo blue. Damn, I done fucked the whole song up. Shit, my bad, y'all. But anyway, so this guy voted illegally. You know what? I'm more concerned about the fact that he got to be fucking mayor with a foreign passport. That's what I'm more concerned about than the fact that he voted illegally, because Americans do that shit all the time. Amir El Bay. Well, somebody got it. Jeez. I thought I bombed for a second. Somebody got it. Appreciate you, Amir. And this is no diss to Mexicans or nothing against Mexicans, but God damn it, this is America. And we are Americans. And we want Americans to run our government. We don't need foreigners from foreign countries coming into our country, migrating to our country. And I'm sure he was a legal immigrant. If he got to be mayor, that means he had to have a green card. But he was a Mexican national. So he wasn't an illegal alien, but he was a Mexican national, which means he would have been more than likely in favor with the favor of the illegal aliens. Why? Because those is his gentes, his peoples. Those is mi gentes. Right, Barnes. How do we fix that? We vote his ass out. That's how we fix that. We get our American asses up and we go fucking vote. That's how we fix that. And look where he's at. Fucking Kansas of all states. Fucking Kansas. And I can almost guarantee you 1,000% that he is a Democrat. Joe Ceballos, I guess that's how I'm gonna say it. Ceballos, Joe Ceballos. Let's take a look. I'm gonna search it on Google real quick, and then I'm gonna share it with you if I could find it. Every time when you try to search these local politicians' party affiliations, whenever they're Republicans, Google will tell you immediately. But when they're Democrats, you got to like dig and dig and dig. Yeah, he's a permanent resident, but not a citizen. So you can't vote, but you can run for office. That doesn't make any fucking sense at all. At all, at all. Let's see. Let's look at his WikiLeaks. Oh, not Wikipedia, not WikiLeaks. I'm tripping. All right, here we go. Wikipedia. Is his name Jose Ceballos? Is it Jose? Yep. Okay. Hold on. I'm trying to search his party affiliation, but it ain't giving me shit. There we go. Democratic Party. All right. Let me do something real quick. Got to stop the screen share. Got to restart the screen share. Do the entire screen. Da-da-da-da. Do the entire screen. Now look. So this is his Wikipedia page. And guess what? Democratic Party. Democratic Party. I thought the Democratic Party. That's right, Amir El Bay. Tell him. He says, anyone who hasn't hit that free like button, press that button for my brother. Yes, press that button, please, because we got 68 watching and 50 likes, and we need more likes. We need 60 likes. What the hell's going on? What the hell's happening? What the hell is going on with the like button on your phone? Yep, Democratic Party. There it is. Plain English. Democrats. They're always Democrats. All these foreign infiltrators, they're always Democrats. So he's not qualified to vote, but he's qualified to hold office. Don't you see something wrong with that? Like, don't people see anything wrong with that? Like, how did we miss that? How? Federal prosecutors in Florida, reportedly influenced by Trump loyalists, are investigating former Obama administration officials. Former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page have been subpoenaed regarding the Trump-Russia probe. This inquiry has caused turmoil and resignations within the Department of Justice, with some prosecutors raising concerns about the politically charged investigations. So when the Democrats were investigating Trump, they weren't politically charged investigations, right? Because Trump was just a bad, bad man. We just needed to find the evidence on this bad man so we could stop this bad man from being president and we could lock his orange ass up. Remember? That was the mentality. That was the message they were putting out. Now we've come to learn that these very same people that were hunting down Trump, they're the very, very bad men that do very, very bad things. And now that the Trump administration is actually going after the real bad guys, now all of a sudden it's politically charged. He's going after his political enemies. Remember, I told you guys this shit years ago, and I've been telling you this for years. This is why when the first few rounds of arrests happened, it all had to be classified and done under wraps because the media would have come out with a blitzkrieg of propaganda convincing people that Trump is simply going after his political enemies and not actually removing the corrupt individuals who have been corrupting our American system of government. They were going to spin it, essentially. And this is why he let them do all this shit that they did to him with the lawfare, the lawsuits, trying to put him in jail and all that. This is why he let him do all of that. Because once he got them to accept that this was normal and this was okay, he knew that there would be a round of legal troubles coming for them. So he allowed them to politically persecute him while they said, nope, this is not political persecution. This is normal criminal justice because we're investigating crimes that you committed, Trump. So now Trump is in office. He's overcome all the false charges and made it to be president. And now he's really going after the criminals. And now the same people that said, no, this isn't politically charged, this is them doing their job, blah, 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 blah. Those very same people now that a different set of prosecutors are doing their job and actually busting these leftists, now they're claiming it's politically charged. And guess what? Nobody believes them. Even the lefty liberals are saying, get those corrupt motherfuckers out of here. Because I don't want to be represented by criminals. Even liberals are saying that shit. I don't see anybody, all those people that were cheering for Letitia James. When Letitia James was campaigning for the Attorney General race of New York State. And she was running around saying, I'm going to get Trump. I'm going to get Trump. And all her whole campaign was about getting Trump. So much so that Trump even mentioned it on Truth Social. All those people that were clapping and cheering for her and egging her on to go try that stupid shit, I don't see a single one of those people on the internet defending Letitia James now that she's been indicted. I don't see a single one of them. So if Trump's investigations and Trump's prosecutions are so politically charged, where are the political supporters of these criminals now? Because if it was simply politically charged, Letitia James would have a crowd of liberals outside of the courthouse, right? But the beauty of it is people know that these motherfuckers need to go to jail, and nobody's batting an eye when they do. And as much as they try to demonize Trump, unfortunately, they've been going too hard for too long, and that narrative is essentially burnt out. That narrative has no life left in it. That narrative is old, played out. So yesterday. And ain't nobody trying to hear that stupid shit no more. Because all the Trump haters that were supporting the left and cheering when Trump got convicted, they're all scratching their heads saying, why did y'all put Trump in jail? If y'all got all this dirt and all this evidence on him, how did he get to be president? And what's odd is the Democrats haven't filed one impeachment attempt against Trump. They haven't conducted one single impeachment against Trump yet. Because the last two times they tried it, they failed. Now they know better. And again, these are the people who are the foot kissers, who entertain the foot kissers. These are the people that actually do want to rule over you. Trump ain't ruling over nobody. Trump ain't telling nobody in the general public what to do. He didn't even tell us what to do when that would have actually helped us, because during the scamdemic, if he would have told us disregard all that bullshit that your locality is saying about COVID and you don't have to wear no mask because it's bullshit. If he would have said that, or don't take no test because the test is bullshit. If he would have told us what to do, a lot of us would have avoided a lot of headaches. Like, I mean, literal headaches, like low oxygen deprivation headaches. Not me, but for the people who were forced to wear the stupid ass mask. But even then, he didn't tell us what to do. Because Trump is the type of guy you either roll with it or get rolled over. You either get right or get left. That's Trump. He ain't going to tell you what to do. He's going to leave you to figure it out on your own, because you're a free-thinking adult with a brain and you're supposed to be using it. And if he sits around babysitting us and holding us by the hand and telling us what to do, the minute he leaves office, we're helpless again. So we got to know how to maneuver this shit and get the right people in office, so we don't have a repeat of 2021 to 2024 or to 2025, where a Democrat gets in and undoes all the progress that we made under Trump. And the best way, not the only way, but the best way we can assure that that happens, or that doesn't happen, is, guess what, folks? We got to get out and we got to vote for the right person. We have to vote for the right candidate. That's what it boils down to. And guess what? If that's the objective and the mission, then not voting actually puts us farther away from achieving our objective. So all you I don't vote motherfuckers, all you're doing is clearing the way for the foot kissers to go vote. And before you know it, you'll be kissing their feet. And not in the fun foot fetish kind of way. So just keep that shit in mind. Now, the battle rages on. So there's been a lot of talk about this is Kash Patel's girlfriend. She is beautiful. Kash Patel has done well for himself. Hopefully she's not a nag, because usually when they're this pretty, they're a fucking headache. Hopefully she isn't. Kash Patel's girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins, has filed a $5 million lawsuit against America First influencers Sam Parker and Elijah Schaefer for allegedly insinuating she's a Mossad honeypot. Now this is what, yeah, Kash Patel, yeah, Cash be beating the hell out of that. I know he do. Cash be fighting crime and man, and fighting some more crime. So there's a crime to be that damn fine. But anyway, let me stop coveting the man's woman. But anyway, this is what you do when people are lying on you. You sue their asses. Now, why did I say that? Well, there's a lot of people in government that we've been, not just us here at this channel, but on other much larger platforms, that we've been pointing out to be pedophiles and friends of Jeffrey Epstein and so on, like actual friends of Jeffrey Epstein. But for some reason, none of these people have filed suit against any of those outlets that were calling them pedophiles. Why is that? Because if they file suit, they'll have to go to court and prove that they're not pedophiles. And, well, if you're an actual pedophile, how do you prove you're not? So when you see these wild, crazy conspiracy theories being thrown around, like most of our high-ranking government officials are pedophiles and Satanists, excuse me, and you see everybody trying to stay quiet and acting like these things weren't said, and nobody's getting sued over it, that lends credibility to the rumor. To me, that makes it more believable. Because if it was a lie, it shouldn't be very hard to go to court and prove it to be a lie. But if they're telling the truth, it'll be very hard to go to court and prove that they're lying because they're telling the truth. So the fact that Kash Patel's girl, Alexis Wilkins, is deciding to go to court, that leads me to believe that she's telling the truth. Barnes says, C-Man, senators have slipped a provision bill into bill to reopen the government that was going to allow senators to sue and get $500,000 for each violation of their phone records. Speaker Johnson was unaware of it. Johnson said he was displeased that provision was included and said tonight that it will be repealed next week after Democrats made a huge fuss about it earlier tonight. Yeah, Speaker Mike Johnson is a rhino. We know that. That's an interesting development, and I sure would like to pay attention to. I sure have to pay attention to it because I want to see how that turns out. But yeah, this is what you do when they're lying on you. You sue them. Remember, Trump sued several news outlets and won. They settled out of court. That's why we never heard about it, because he won every single lawsuit. because people were lying and he was telling the truth. So when people say, be careful spreading baseless rumors, well, if you're going to call out somebody for being involved in something that they could deny that they're involved, that they would rather deny that they're involved in, you better have proof. Because if they really think that they could, make you out to be a liar, they'll take you to court. But if they run and hide and they don't sue anybody, they're probably guilty. So I think the fact that she filed a lawsuit should help put that debate to bed, because I've seen a lot of people, even in my own circle, entertaining the possibility that she might be an Israeli spy. But I don't think so. I don't think so, because I don't think she would be filing a lawsuit if she actually was a spy. At midnight, Trump just called out the rigged election and J6 with FBI informants. We need to start seeing arrests. Get it done. This is what the big news rigged election is all about. So Trump is saying we need to see arrests. We need to start seeing arrests. Get it done. So the J6 rioters, which were Antifa mixed with Black Lives Matter, mixed with FBI and Capitol Police, now Trump is calling for their arrests. Because, well, with Kash Patel being FBI director, he would have access to all of the files and all the case files, and he knows exactly what FBI agents were involved with the January 6th riots, and thus bringing them to justice. What the hell? Bringing them to justice shouldn't be that difficult. And I hope to see them brought to justice, because when the Biden regime took over in 2021, they took a lot of innocent patriots and locked them away for years. And they tried to hit them with all kinds of bullshit ass charges and lock them away for even more years. And thank God Trump got elected, because he came in and he pardoned everybody and got them out, when they shouldn't have been in there in the first fucking place. It should have been those FBI agents, those Antifa goons, and those Black Lives Matter coons. That's who should have been up in there. And just so you guys know, I was there on January 6th. And I was in the crowd from right where this camera angle is. I was just about right in this area. And I saw this guy mingling with the crowd down here. These were all the Antifa people. And then he climbed up here, and all these people disappeared. And then it was a police line that appeared. And then next thing you know, gray jacket man here was in the police line with the cops, after mingling in the crowd like he was one of the people in the crowd. That place was crawling with informants, because they wanted to know who was voting for Trump, and they wanted to see how they can target them. Yes, Deborah, I was there, and I got the footage to prove it. I was most certainly there. And I think going there on January 6th is what really blew my channel up. Because shortly after that, 2 weeks after that, I had to cover the fake inauguration and the whole fake Joe Biden presidency. Those were fun times. So fun, in fact, I had to bring it back a little bit. Where is slide 19? There it is. So speaking of January 6th, not only were there infiltrators in the crowd of patriots who were posing as rioters in order to frame the patriots, but there was also somebody caught on surveillance camera delivering and dropping off pipe bombs to the RNC building and the DNC building. And remember, I told you that the Capitol Police was involved in the January 6th riot? Remember I told you that? Well, guess who the bomber is? Pelosi announces her retirement just days before this comes out. Breaking: former Capitol Police officer Shawnee Ray Jerkoff is a forensic match to the long-sought January 6th pipe bomber. This was all a cover-up. Yeah, they been knew it was her. Share this everywhere because the media won't. Yeah, Shawnee Jerkoff. She was the one that planted the bombs. She looks fucking weird. I'd be scared to death if I got pulled over by this woman. Yep, she's the one that planted the bombs, a Capitol Police officer. And she was a Capitol Police officer at the time. I guess she's since retired or quit or whatever. And the FBI knew, the Capitol Police knew, but instead of locking her ass up, they locked up the protesters that were there in support of Donald Trump. And the only reason why I didn't get picked up is because I didn't enter the building. I stayed outside with the rest of the smart people who weren't dumb enough to get suckered inside by Antifa. I stayed outside. So this is big news because for years we were made to believe they'll never know who this person is. They'll never figure out who that is. Well, turns out that they knew all along. And we need to see indictments. We would like to see some indictments. That would be fun. But speaking of fun, I say the most fun I had on this show was in 2021 and 2022, showing you guys the fake Joe Biden presidency. And if you want to see the full stream with all the details, I have several of them on my Rumble page. Just type in Joe Biden, fake president, or fake president, or just Joe Biden on my channel in the search bar, and you should find a bunch of shows about the fake presidency. This is a picture of Joe Biden from 2008 on the left, 2021 on the right. What is that? 13 years later? So in 13 years, he loses all these neck wrinkles. He loses the chin wrinkles. And his whole face is shaped different. Earlobes are different. Nose is different. Eye colors damn near different. That's not the real Joe Biden, and it never was. And I've been telling you guys from the beginning, that's not Joe Biden. That is a replacement. You can clearly see his hair got grayer, but his face got younger. How does that even make sense? You mean to tell me in 13 years this motherfucker aged backwards? Go back and watch those Rumble shows, man. You're missing out. You're missing out. I don't want you guys to keep missing out. Here's from the inauguration. You see the problem here? Do you see the problem? It's supposed to be the same scene with his hand on the Bible. But look at this. Thumbs in a different position. Nobody behind them. Different people behind him in this picture. It was filmed on 2 separate days because the entire inauguration was not live. It was never broadcast live. It was a live broadcast of a pre-recorded, edited event. We watched a movie scene on Inauguration Day. It was not a real inauguration, but everybody believed it. They thought I was crazy. And I just had to keep coming with receipts. I remember I went weeks and weeks and weeks doing nothing but fake inauguration receipts. Pictures, video. The wardrobe changes. All of that shit. And if you were paying attention, you would have seen it too. Deborah Ticey said she saw it. Yeah, I was telling people, and people were actually arguing and debating with me. Like, no, that shit is real. I watched the whole thing. Like, yeah, you sat and watched Batman too. You believe Batman's fucking real, you dumbass? The inauguration was real. I watched the whole thing on TV. Yeah, you watch Ninja Turtles on TV too. You really think there's some fucking kung fu turtles living in the sewer, you dumbass? Of course it's real. It was all over the internet and the news and all that. I was watching on TV. Like, motherfucker, you seen Teen Wolf on TV. You think the teenagers are fucking werewolves? They might smell like werewolves, but they're certainly not werewolves. You believe that shit too? Well, I know that inauguration was real. That was a real inauguration. Mind you, by constitutional law, the swearing in is supposed to happen. The oath of office is supposed to be taken at noon. Joe Biden took his oath of office at 11:50, 10 minutes to 12. And that was done on purpose to let the real patriots who know how America is supposed to work, to let us know that it was fakery and foolery. And people still didn't catch on. No, it was real. I saw it watching on the TV. Yeah, you watch Spider-Man on TV too. You think if a radioactive spider bites you, you're going to be superhuman, you dumbass? And it's like, damn, they made it so obvious. They made it so freaking obvious that it was fake. And people still fell for it. People fell for it. But now, years later, looking back, you can see how fake it is. And if you go back and watch my Rumble streams from 2020, from Inauguration Day, January 20th, 2021, all the way through 2022 and 2023, you will see all the fake Joe Biden streams. This is why they were using AutoPen, because that wasn't Joe Biden, so they couldn't get the signature. So they had to use AutoPen to fake the fucking signature. Now, this one ties into it all. You would think, it's the rapper Jay-Z. What's he got to do with politics? Well, Jay-Z was also on the Gitmo list, and this dreadlock Rasta that's walking around pretending to be Jay-Z, that's not the real Jay-Z. He's way shorter than Jay-Z actually is. And whenever you see Jay-Z's daughter around him, she always acts weird around him because that's not her dad. And this guy here on the right, his name is Ramir Satterwaith. And he's a 30 some odd year old man now. And he believes that he is the biological son of Jay-Z. And he kind of looks like him. And he's been for 10 years trying to file a paternity suit against Jay-Z to prove that Jay-Z is his biological father, and Jay-Z has been ducking him. And finally, the case came before the judge, and the judge tossed it. Judge tosses paternity suit for man who spent 10 years claiming Jay-Z is his father. And the judge did not toss this suit because Jay-Z paid him off. The judge tossed this suit because Jay-Z is no longer alive. But the judge can't say that Jay-Z is no longer alive, but because he's a judge, because it's classified information, because he's a judge, he is allowed to be made privy to that information, but under sworn, but while being sworn to secrecy. And because the judge would know that Jay-Z is not alive because he was executed after a military tribunal, he had to toss the case. Because it would be an injustice to Ramir, knowing that he is Jay-Z's biological son, because he looks just like the motherfucker, to have this fake imposter Jay-Z take the DNA test, which will inevitably come back and say Ramir is not his son. That's why the judge tossed the case. It wasn't because he got paid off. It wasn't because he has something against Ramir. It's because he had to do it because that was the only way to prevent Ramir from being told a lie that Jay-Z is not his father. Yeah, him and Beyonce both gone. That's why they look so different now, because it ain't them. And because Jay-Z is dead, the judge had to toss the case. And because all of Jay-Z's other kids are minors, he can't get the DNA test. But he does have one shot. He has one shot left. And this is the angle he should have taken. So Jay-Z has a daughter that's also, I believe she's a tad bit younger than Ramir Satterthwaite. And she kind of went through something similar to Ramir, where Jay-Z completely denied being her father and didn't want anything to do with her, kind of just ducked the situation. And the daughter was on a crusade to prove that Jay-Z was her father. And somehow she managed to get somebody to get some of Jay-Z's feces. And they used the feces for a DNA sample from Jay-Z and were able to match the girl's DNA to Jay-Z as being related to him by blood, his daughter. And once she proved that Jay-Z was her father, Jay-Z then decided to step up and make amends and buy her a house and give her some money and, set her up and, be a father and have a relationship with her. Ramir wasn't so lucky. But when I say he has one more shot, paternity can also be established through siblings. So if Ramir could somehow reach out to his alleged sister and have her take a DNA test with him, which I'm pretty sure since she went through a similar situation, I'm sure she'd be willing to help him unless she signed paperwork with Jay-Z saying she's not allowed to do that or she loses everything, which I don't put past Jay. But if he can get her to take a DNA test and prove that she is his sister, then that would give the man the closure that he needs to know that his father, the man he believes is his father, is actually his father. So this case on the face, it looks like the judge is being a scumbag and saying, Ramir, you're a grown man. Fuck you. You don't need your father. But that's not the case. It's actually the judge saying Jay-Z is dead and I can't force this fake Jay-Z to take a DNA test and for it to come back to say he's not your father because I know for a fact he's not your father. But what I don't know is if Jay-Z is your father or not. But what I do know is this man is not Jay-Z. Judges can be notified and given access to classified information. Oh, yes, they can. Especially if that classified information could directly affect the case that they're presiding over. So the minute Ramir filed this case against Sean Carter, whatever judge that case was assigned to, That judge either got a visit from the military or got a visit from Homeland Security and was made aware of what the situation was and was informed of what he would have to do in terms of handling this case. That's how the game works. That's how the game goes. That's how they play it. If military action can affect the outcome of a civilian case, the military gets in touch with the judge and informs the judge of the situation. And then the judge then makes his ruling accordingly. And if it's concerning classified situations, classified information, you'll end up with a situation like this where the judge's ruling just doesn't seem to make any sense. But if you know how the system works and you know how the game works, you can actually think it out and make sense of it. So if you approach it from the position of Jay-Z's still alive because this fake imposter they've been fooling the public with, they managed to fool me too, then guess what? You'll be totally confused about what this judge did. But if you're in the know and you understand that this Jay-Z imposter is a fucking imposter and is not the real Jay-Z, then it would make perfect sense what this judge did. See how that works? Here's the biggest giveaway that this dreadlock Rasta is not really Jay-Z. When in the fuck did you see Jay-Z smiling that goddamn much? Ask yourself, when have you seen throughout Jay-Z's entire career, when have you seen that man smiling this fucking much? Jay-Z keeps a straight face. He rarely ever smiles. He's very antisocial. This Jay-Z is very social. Just that alone should tell you that's not Jay-Z because the personality don't match. And I never met Jay-Z, but I saw Jay-Z in person. When me and my dad were working on that drainage project for that 5-star resort over in the islands back in 2008 and 2009, where he made that $1 million. My dad, that is. I was writing invoices every week for $20,000, $80,000, all kind of crazy shit because we was doing some wild work out there. I'm talking about digging drainage ditches through freaking solid limestone. Yeah, that was fun. It paid well. And celebrities were coming to purchase the villas that were being built. And Jay-Z and Beyonce were looking into purchasing one too. And they came for a tour and they spent some time on the island. And I saw them walking on the beach. And then I ran into them at a nightclub. So I've seen Jay-Z in person. And that dreadlock Rasta is not Jay-Z. So this judge's ruling right here actually lends credibility to the fact that Jay-Z is dead and this is not the real Jay-Z. Right. Exactly, Mike Hill. That's why Denzel ignored him at the basketball game. Because Denzel knew that wasn't Jay. But at the end of this road, according to Donald Trump, there shall be somewhat of a pot of gold. Wow, Trump is demanding that money be given back to the people from these big insurance companies. That's what I voted for. Yeah, I like the sound of that. Me likes the sound of that. Excuse me. And guys, this is the last slide. So don't leave me hanging. Don't leave me hanging. We got 5 supporters on the board. So that means we hit the halfway mark. We need 5 more. So let's get 5 more names on the scorecard, shall we? So Donald Trump says, I am recommending to Senate Republicans that the hundreds of billions of dollars currently being sent to money-sucking insurance companies in order to save the bad health care provided by Obamacare be sent directly to the people so that they can purchase their own much better health care and have money left over. In other words, take from the big bad insurance companies, give it to the people, and terminate per dollar spent the worst health care anywhere in the world, Obamacare. Unrelated, we must still terminate the filibuster. And if you guys want to learn more about the celebrities being, the dead celebrities, go watch my stream called, it's on Rumble, called Arrests and Executions of Famous People. Just type in arrests, executions in the search bar on my Rumble page, and you should find it. I have several streams covering that topic. And I have side-by-side pictures of the original celebrities and the replacement body doubles, and you can clearly see that they're not the same people. So that if you're interested in that subject matter, I think it's worth taking a look at, because I provide you with enough details to where you can walk away and confidently say, God damn, this motherfucker is on to something, at the very least. So aside from the tariff dividends of $2,000 that Trump wants to give to the American people, I'm sure you guys heard about that. Trump is also looking to take the money back from the insurance companies and give it back to the people, because that was taxpayer money being given to the insurance companies anyway. So I think that's great, because after all these years of us complaining about being ripped off by these insurance companies, just like after all these years of us complaining about being screwed over by these crooked politicians, what are we seeing Trump do? He's indicting he's having the crooked politicians indicted, and now he's trying to take the money back from these crooked companies and give it back to the people. So at this point in time, just given those two factors alone, anybody that tells you Trump is a bad guy, you got to look at them with the fucking side eye. Anybody that tells you that Trump's job is to destroy America, you got to look at them with the side eye and look at them as if they're working for the people trying to destroy America, because why would you want to stop this? What other president in history has ever even talked about doing something this monumental for the people of this country? This is why Q said, be careful who you follow, because a lot of these dudes you think are truth tellers, they're agents. That's why they out here telling you not to vote and all that stupid shit. That's why they want the borders open and all that stupid shit, because they're agents. So they might give you a lot of profound truth about a lot of shit, but they won't tell you nothing true about politics, because the politics is where it really matters. In your day-to-day, everyday existence, the politics matters the most. When it comes to what kind of future your children are going to have, the politics matters the most, because the policies they put in place today are going to set the stage for the condition of society tomorrow. And you non-voting ass motherfuckers, your kids are going to suffer right along with ours if you don't get your shit together and realize what really matters in this country, because the foreigners are pouring in and they're starting to see the power in the political system. So they're infiltrating the political system, while you dumb Americans, you brainwashed Americans, are over here telling each other, don't participate in American politics. So you choose not to participate in American politics, but then you complain about the foreigners coming over here and getting political power. Make that make sense. Right, because it doesn't. But that's what the agents are sent here to do. Feed you ideas that don't make sense, that are detrimental to your well-being and the future of your kids, and convince you that the good guys are the bad guys in a feeble effort to prop up the bad guys. But the more Trump does is the less that shit works. That anti-America propaganda ain't working no more. That anti-capitalism propaganda ain't working no more. People see you communists and you socialists and you agents for what you are. And you have lost your influence. And once you lose your influence, that's step one to losing the game. Because you're a bunch of fucking losers. But anyway, make sure you guys go subscribe to the Citizen Man backup channel. Shit. Where are we at? There we go. Make sure you guys go subscribe to the Citizen Man backup channel. If you haven't subscribed to the backup channel, please make sure you do in case they zap me over here on Citizen Man TV. By subscribing to the Citizen Man backup channel, we can actually stay connected on YouTube. But Rumble is where you'll always be able to find me, and that's where the bulk of my content is. There's well over 500 videos on Rumble right now, just waiting for you to go watch. Hundreds, if not thousands of hours of deep research, serious content, very informative with receipts, any talking point, any question, whatever you might come across, all the answers are there. You just got to get over there and spend the time and watch the shows. If you like the show and you find it entertaining and you want to binge watch, I strongly encourage that too, because at the end of it all, at least you won't be binge watching some chick flicks or some brain rot bullshit. You'll actually be binge watching something information that you should have known your whole life because your parents should have taught you, but they didn't teach you because they too were deprived of it. So build your knowledge base, learn about your country, learn about your own politics so you can stay one step ahead of the foreigners. There's no reason why foreigners should be coming to our country from a whole different nation and somehow finding themselves in higher positions in society than us Americans. That should not be happening. And the only reason why it's happening is because we're being kept in ignorance. Break yourself out of that ignorance and start doing the research. Start accepting things that you never thought could be true as true if proven to be so. Don't keep doubting reality, because the reality is if you don't vote, the foot kissers and the foreigners will vote. And that's how we got here in the first place. All right. Also, last but not least, if you guys would like to support the show, we still have 5 more slots for supporters left on the board. You can send in your kind donations via Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo using the tag scrolling across the screen in the banner below. The links that are pinned to the top of the YouTube chat in the black box where it says Citizen Man TV in yellow. Just click the yellow, the box opens up, and all the links are there. The red X through the PayPal logo is just to remind you that PayPal censors comments. So please try to keep it surface level so they don't try to freeze our accounts and take our money away and rob us both. All right. So if you guys sat through the show and you enjoyed the show and you feel like it's, worth your support, please consider donating to the show, as all donations are greatly appreciated. Looks like we got one more in. Shout out to Deborah Ticey. Shout out to you, Deborah. That's 6. We got 6 on the board. Shout out to my man Antonio on the Cash App, Earl Chinana, and Deborah Ticey. Those are 4 on the Cash App. Shout out to Elsine on the Venmo, my sister Elsine. Shout out to you for that support, Elsine. And shout out to my good brother Lee14224 on the PayPal. Appreciate that support, my good brother, as always. And so we are at 6. We are at 6, and we might be stuck there. I'm not sure. But 4 more is starting to seem like a lot now. I don't know why, but it just is. But if we can get the last 4 on the board before I tap out, that would be awesome. It's 2 a.m, so I know it's getting kind of late. Right, Iron FE. No dual citizenship in Congress. I agree. I agree 1,000%. 1,000%. So we are at 6 supporters. I guess we'll shut it down there because it's getting well, it ain't getting late. It is late. It's actually early, to tell you the truth, but it's late enough. And this time of night, it starts to get pretty chilly. So I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. But I do appreciate you guys. Anybody that shout out to my brother Frank on the PayPal, Frank Hammond. I forgot to shout out my brother Frank for that support. And my brother B Miles hit me on the Cash App the other day too. So shout out to you guys for that support. Before I forget, I always say I'm going to shout you out if you hit me in between shows, and I tend to forget a lot, but I didn't forget this time. I remembered you. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I got a story to tell you. I fucking forgot. So this weekend, I had to journey from the Midwest all the way up to New York City to handle some business. And I left at 2:30 a.m. Sunday morning, which was, Saturday night going into Sunday morning. And then I arrived at about 4:30 or so on 4:30, 5 o'clock on Sunday evening. And I overnighted Sunday evening. Well, I had to go to New York City, then I had to go to Pennsylvania, then I had to overnight in Pennsylvania and then go back to New York City. That shit was it was insane. But on Monday afternoon, I left, so I got in early Tuesday morning. And when I was driving from New York back west, I had to pass through some snow because I saw in the forecast that we were going to get some snow in like the eastern portion of the Midwest. So I was, kind of expecting bad weather. And I was doing about 75 because the speed limit was 70. It was middle of the night, so I wasn't trying to speed too much. I was doing about 75, and then all of a sudden, I went from dry road to maybe about an inch thick layer of sleet with heavy snow falling. And my truck did a 360 and spun around about 3 different times until it came to a stop in the fast lane facing the opposite direction. Now, luckily for me, I know how to handle a vehicle when it's losing control. First thing you do is you take your foot off the gas and you don't slam on the brakes, but you gently pump the brakes to slow the momentum down. And you feel which way the weight of the vehicle is swinging, and you turn the steering wheel in the opposite direction, right? That's kind of how you handle that. Or you turn the steering wheel in the direction that the back is swaying to get it to straighten up and sway the other way. That's what I meant to say. But, I executed the maneuver and I was able to stop. And thank God it was the middle of the night because there wasn't too many other cars on the road. So I didn't run into anybody. I didn't run off the road or anything, but it did scare the shit out of me. And I proceeded to drive in 4-wheel drive for about the next 2 hours until I got out of the sleet and got back on the dry road. And then I, pulled over and dropped it into neutral and put it back into 2-wheel drive and proceeded at the proper speed limit. But yeah, it was fucking scary. And I had to tell somebody because boy, oh boy, I thought I was going to wipe out. I thought I saw the wipeout coming, but I didn't, thank God. And I made it home safe. But anyway, just thought I'd share that with you guys. Anyway, I do appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate the love and the support. I'm about to have my post-show smoke session and then take my ass to bed. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for being here. Appreciate the love. Appreciate the support. And I will see you on the next one. Citizen Man, out.